Remember that feeling? You finally get your hands on a new sequel to a game that you love. The box promises more of everything. More speed, more tracks, more effects. You pop it in, heart racing, and then you hit a wall. Not the track wall, a different kind of wall, where the excitement just kind of sputters. If you've ever been let down by a follow-up that missed the point, you're not alone. Today, we're digging into a perfect case study, Extreme G2 on the N64. On paper, it's the ultimate upgrade. But to understand why it left so many players cold, you have to look past the feature list and into something way more important. Let's get into it. Let's start with the good stuff, because on the surface, Probe Entertainment did everything right. They had the checklist for a killer sequel. First up, control. If you played the original Extreme G, you know, the bikes could feel a bit like steering a brick sometimes. Extreme G2, they fixed it. The handling is tighter, more responsive. You're not smashing into a wall every 5 seconds. That's a huge win. And the content? They went all out. 12 totally new tracks, each with 3 variations. That's a ton of racing real estate. They widened the tracks for better battles and added a bunch of new weapons like weird fire rockets and packed in more modes that you can shake a controller pack memory card at. We're talking a deep contest mode, 4-player split screen, and even a totally revamped battle mode with tanks. Here's a great example of what I mean. They even added this insane audio detail, break the sound barrier. You hear a sonic boom that drowns out everything else until you drop below Mach 1. That's the kind of cool, immersive touch that shows they were paying attention to what resonates most with players. But here's the catch. This is where the story gets interesting. They also cranked the visual effects to 11. Lens flare, motion trails, more detailed bike models. The menu system alone is a work of art, with those beautiful interactive disc interfaces. It's clear they wanted to dethrone the shining new competition, F-Zero X, and Wipeout 64 on their own flashy terms. So, you've got better control, tons of content, and a visual spectacle. That should be a home run, right? Well, let me show you the one thing the checklist forgot, and how it broke the entire game. Alright, we're about to get to the heart of the issue. It all comes down to 2 words: speed and control. In a futuristic arcade racer, these aren't just features, they're the entire foundation. The feeling of blasting out a track, threading a needle between 2 walls at 500 miles per hour, that's the magic. Extreme G2 understands this intellectually. The speedometer screams numbers over Mach 1. The feeling? That's where it starts to fall apart, because the game's frame rate just can't keep up with its own ambition. Let me break it down. When you're in time trial, alone on the track, it's smoother. You get a glimpse of what could be. But in the main event, the contest Grand Prix mode, the moment 3 other AI bikes are on screen with you, the game starts to chug. The sense of blistering speed is replaced by a frame rate that struggles sometimes to keep up with all of the action on screen. And this creates a vicious cycle. The choppy frame rate makes it impossible to judge your position precisely. So that improved control we talked about, it starts to become guesswork. You're not reacting, you're predicting where your bike might be. Now, imagine that happening while you're trying to avoid a missile or line up a shot. It turns chaos into frustration. But wait, it gets even more ironic. Remember all of those beautiful visual effects? The explosions, the lighting, the alpha effects. Every single one of them murders the frame rate even further. Launching a mine can cause a hiccup. A big explosion can bring the action to a crawl. The very stuff they added to make the game more impressive actually makes it less playable. What's wild is this puts Extreme G2 in direct opposition to a game like F-Zero X. F-Zero X stripped away almost all track detail, but gave it a rock-solid, silky smooth 60 frames per second. The sense of speed was unbelievable. XG2 went the other way, all of the detail, not so much of the stability. So here's the new problem that creates. You have a game built for high-speed combat, but it runs best when you're alone or with the weapon switched off, and in my mind, that's like a racing game that's best when you don't even race. Which leads us to the real tragedy of XG2. Let's talk about what was lost. The original Extreme G, despite some flaws, had a clear identity. It was the fastest, meanest thing on the N64 in 1997. It had a grimy techno-punk vibe and a focus on insane levels of velocity that carved out its own niche. With XG2, and trying to be everything, a graphical showpiece, a content-rich package, a direct competitor to the other high-profile racing games of its time, kind of lost that sense of identity. The soundtrack ditched the pounding techno for more subtle ambient tunes. It's cool, but it doesn't get your heart rate up. The tracks, while visually busier, introduced some mean-spirited design, including the final track that was full of brutal, unfun zigzags. The original Extreme G, clunky as it was, delivered that jolt. XG2, with all of its features, often just delivers confusion and slowdown. It's the risk we all fear, going back to something and finding the magic is gone, not because of nostalgia, but because of the core experience was compromised, and Probe must have known they had a gameplay problem. But they couldn't or wouldn't make the brutal trade-off that the N64 demanded, flashy effects over performance. So what's the final verdict on this ambitious but messy sequel? Let's tie this all together. Extreme G2 is a fascinating time capsule. It's a textbook example of a sequel that improved almost every single thing about the original, except one feeling that mattered the most. It gave you more tracks, more modes, better overall sound design, and a slicker menu. But it traded away the smooth, relentless sense of speed that's the entire reason you play a game like this. For players like you and me, who have limited time, that trade-off is fatal. We don't want a checklist of features. We want a reliable, focused burst of that old magic. And we weren't alone. The reviews of the time were mixed, averaging around 6 or 7 out of 10. They praised the effort, but couldn't ignore the frame rate. I think IGN's review nailed it, saying the game was nowhere near its competition because of that crucial flaw. But is it still worth playing today? Sure. It's still good fun, and it's a monument to a very specific late 90s ambition, pushing hardware to its breaking point to compete. It's easy and fun to appreciate the effort, and the sheer volume of the stuff they crammed in. But it also serves as a perfect lesson in games. Especially fast-paced action games. How it feels will always matter more than how much it has. But that's just what I think. Did you have a different experience playing Extreme G2 back in the day? Let me know in the comments. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'd like to invite you to subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.